Men and women both have expectations individually upon themselves. Expectations exclusive to women, some exclusive to men, and so on. Amongst these expectations that most men have is the behavior of masculinity. To be masculine, to be someone who when people see and view, they will not doubt their integrity that is contingent on their masculinity. But there are false images of what masculinity truly means. One of these images is to be someone who is brute and heartless. The more brute, abrasive a person can be, that is very masculine. And obviously, the more masculine, the more true you are to your identity. Another false expectation is to be someone who doesn't have that soft heart that will allow them to express their emotions whenever they feel the pressures piling on them, or whenever they see or witness or find themselves in a circumstance that is very passionate and touching, whether sad or happy. You can cry tears of sadness or tears of joy. But one false expectation is that a real man will never cry. You keep your tears to yourself. That's a feminine quality. Do not engage in that sort of behavior. Other masculine expectations is, well, only real men can handle lifting this much weight. Real men can drive this sort of vehicle. Real men will get that sort of job. Until all these expectations are placed, then you don't have any real man existing at all. A real man is a man that takes into consideration their emotions, takes into consideration societal behavior, and their place in society. In addition to that, their faith. Real men cry for good reasons. Real men cry for reasonable reasons. Real men stand up for other men and women out there. Real men are not abrasive, abusive, rather caring, loving, and passionate. And us Muslims should take the greatest examples of the realest of men out there, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his blessed progeny. For we find the Holy Prophet expressing himself, crying tears of both joy and sadness for the loved ones surrounding him. When he was witnessing the birth of his grandchildren, he shed that tear of joy. And when he heard of what is to happen to his beloved grandson, Aba Abdullah alayhi salam, he shed that tear of sadness. Yet Rasulullah, we see, is the exemplar of men, the chivalrous example of what it means to be a true man. Yet the man himself finds it totally acceptable to shed those tears that every human being has been endowed with to shed. Us men, to be masculine doesn't mean to avoid every feminine trait and quality out there, if we can highlight a quality to be feminine to begin with. We look at some of these qualities and we say, if this is a quality that is exclusively associated for women, then I can never find myself engaging in these. Amongst them, tearing, crying, expressing your love and passion to children, having that tender heart, that soft-spokenness, and so on. Men are different. In addition to women and men being different from a biological standpoint, men versus men are different. So no two men are the same. No two men are alike. However, we all can resonate on virtual principles, on principles that are transcendental. They transcend time. For we see, for example, you find Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. What does it mean to be a true man? Earlier, we spoke about strength. Okay, can you find someone stronger than Ali ibn Abi Talib? Yeah, at the same time, what does it mean to have a feminine quote-unquote quality? To be teary-eyed, to be tender, to have a soft heart, to be soft-spoken. Could you find someone who was more soft-hearted, more tender in their behavior than Ali ibn Abi Talib? How he adopts these antithetical qualities and manages to marry them is a true example of what it means to be a man. It's very wrong to have these expectations on a real man will never cry. Many of them are motivated culturally. That when you struggle, when you go through pain, sometimes biologically, naturally, what helps is to shed that tear, to be alone, to seclude yourself. What's wrong with that type of behavior? Well, the societal expectation will differ, will contradict that. You're a man, you're not supposed to cry. Or there are certain career paths that it will be very inappropriate if a man decides to take. For example, entering in cinematography, entering in being a pediatrician, being someone who tends to the affairs and concerns of young children. These are usually expectations upon women, some might describe, or the fine arts and liberal arts. A man's job is elsewhere. That's why there are efforts to get more of our sisters into these STEM fields. If someone is actually competent in a particular field, why does a gender have to act as an impediment from you excelling in a field? If there's no haram being committed, if you're not jeopardizing your integrity, more power to you. Do not let cultural expectations and even modern psychosocial expectations and norms deter you from moving on and pursuing your passion if there is no hurmah. There is nothing forbidden being committed. In addition to that, if it is befitting as well. And this is an area where people struggle to identify what that means. Because some will say, look, I have expectations for my children, but I can never have my son being a pediatrician, caring to babies and women issues, especially if that means that I will be subject to his behavior, that you made your son behave in this way. Or have a son that decides to enter the fashion industry, decides to help make different types of clothing available, sort of a unique style that usually we find more of the sisters focusing on. The arts and arts and crafts. What is wrong here isn't necessarily someone saying, I don't see any haram, but I don't feel like it's befitting for my son, like it's not appropriate for him. This level of appropriateness to be befitting for you, this is something that is contingent on your culture and your expectation. One culture might find wearing gowns and dresses for men as something totally inappropriate. But if you come to the likes of Iraq, the likes of, for example, Syria, then men wear those long, we call them dishdashat, we call them dishadish, the long overgowns and whatnot. But if you go to other cultures and other societies, say for example Lebanon and whatnot, men will not behave in that way. All of this is circumstantial. Appropriateness, what is befitting, what is not befitting, if it's outside of being haram and not, then that is contingent upon your expectations. At the end of the day, you want to manage to marry both what is not forbidden as well as what is appropriate with you in order to not deal with the hassles of family expectations and societal expectations. But ultimately, if you are pleasing your Lord in the process, that should be your only concern. Real men are people who take upon paths in their lives that do not disappoint Allah, that also manages to elevate their status in society to others and bring a good image to Islam Ahlul Bayt. We find the best examples with the Ahlul Bayt themselves. We are not better than the Ahlul Bayt. They taught us what it means to be true men, to be true women. We can just simply take their examples. A real man doesn't stay home and cook. Men do not take about that profession. Well, I found Amir al-Mu'mineen himself cooking and cleaning in his very home while his blessed and beloved wife will be taking care of herself and relaxing for a day. They would share their times together. Imam Ali one day would be cleaning, the other day he would be making and preparing the food and whatnot. This is a quality of a true man. When you concern yourselves with what better society and you as an individual, not what the societal expectation is. You are a man, you concern yourself with yourself and your society and your Lord. But you can please all of them. That's not something that's probably going to ever happen. Your society, pleasing your home, then pleasing your Lord at the same time. In an ideal world, we want that to happen. What we should prioritize is our Lord. Everything else is secondary. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is primary. And there's no shame in adopting what are considered quote unquote feminine qualities. Allah has made you a human being, and we go through moments and phases in life. And if we find it necessary, we are not transgressing from our values and principles, then there is more power to us as men in this day and age, inshallah ta'ala.